Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dental Momentum Podcast powered by Duckett Ladd Dental CPAs and Advisors. Jared Duckett back at you with my business partner Bill Ladd. And today, guys, we're gonna chat about a topic that is it's pretty near and dear to my heart, Bill. I'm sure yours as well, and that is traction. And a lot of you guys, out there, when I say traction, that might not mean anything to you at all, which means you're in the right spot. We're going to introduce traction to you and go over exactly what it is. But Bill, just real quick, when you hear traction, I say near and dear to our heart. Why do you think I say that? Why do you think it means that means so much to us?
I can remember, Jared, when I first heard about traction and I got the book and I started reading it. I think you actually gave it to me, and we kind of start trying to understand what it all meant. And it was very logical, and it seemed very a clean, a very effective way to run your business. And so we kind of dipped our toe in the water and kind of, messed around with it a little bit, never really got a great, grip on it. And, I think once we started making some internal changes, which we'll talk about today, it really just became this system of accountability that blew us away. And to me, when I hear traction, that's how I phrase it: systematic accountability. And you are going to rock and roll past your goals. That's what we've seen. That's what I love about it.
Yeah. And to hit on that a little further, I think really a big turning point or a big change, like you said, in our firm is once we started implementing traction, and in traction, and we're going to go in detail here, but in traction, you've got that visionary and you've got that integrator, which we'll talk about. And you, as CEO of Duckett Ladd, you are the visionary. And, on the show today, we've got the great opportunity to really talk to Zach Hoskins. So Zach Hoskins is the Duckett Ladd integrator. He is also an EOS implementer. EOS, kind of the same thing as traction. But Zach, first off, man, just welcome to the show. Privileged to have you here and privileged to work alongside you too, man.
Yeah, great to be here. Looking forward to unpacking what this might look like and kind of talking with you guys today.
Yeah. So how would you, so I say traction at the beginning and I said, hey, some people might not know what that is. Just briefly, I guess, kind of talk about traction or unpack traction just a little bit, then we're going to open up the whole package.
Yeah, for sure. So Bill hit the nail on the head with the systematic accountability. I mean, the three main goals of traction are to get your company, your practice, your firm aligned around vision, traction, and then being healthy. And so what we mean by vision in the EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, which is EOS, and traction, like Jared said, they're kind of interchangeable. But what we mean by vision is having everybody in your firm, your practice, rowing in the same direction. So everybody aligned with the same vision that you've set out as the visionary or as your leadership team, everybody rowing in the same direction. And then traction, meaning that systematic accountability, being able to deliver on the systems, the processes, everything that's necessary, the daily disciplines to get you to achieve that vision. And then healthy, meaning open, honest, transparent conversations, dealing with issues as they arise, setting them up, knocking them down, and making them go away forever so that you have a cohesive organization that's very healthy and very open.
Yeah. No, it's spot on. And I mean, really, I'm thinking just back to our firm is really how it really changed it. It gave us structure. It gave us a system that we could always point back to. Hey, this is traction. How does that fit into traction? And it gives. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, I think what's interesting, Jared, and Zach, you'll agree with this, is any number of business books will give you bits and pieces, and you can kind of take it. And I think that's kind of what we had done organically, Jared. We had taken bits and pieces of Entre Leadership and a little bit of Start With Why and all this stuff and try to figure out how do you do it all. And that's what we loved about traction, where we had a system, an EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, that gave you kind of that roadmap to pull it all together. So what I'd love to do, Zach, is ask you, when you came in as an integrator and you saw Duckett Ladd as, us trying to self-implement, what was your assessment of how we had done as a firm implementing traction?
Be nice to us here. Be nice.
Yeah. So no, that's a great point, and that's what I've found in my experience with some of my other clients is, and especially when working with you guys, whenever I came in, you can easily go pick up the book and read it, and it kind of gives you some tips on how to implement it. But being able to truly implement in a way that is able to get to your team to actually instill the system and the process into your team while you are still performing your main duty. So let's say you're the CEO or you're the head dentist, or you've got X, Y, and Z on your plate on top of implementing a brand new system of operating in your business. I always ask the question, raise your hand if you have, if you can deliver on everything on your plate right now and implement an entire operating system into your business. And so one thing that I noticed whenever we went in is that's what happened. That's what was happening. So, Jared, you had all of your things that you were doing as the, partner in the firm. Bill, you had all of your things that you were doing as the partner in the firm. So nobody truly had enough bandwidth to take something from start to finish, implement it through, and then blast it out into the entire organization. And so that's where, Bill touched on grabbing a piece from here or a piece from there and saying, oh, I like this from this business book, or, oh, I like this. Well, the cool part about Traction is it was created by a guy named Gino Wickman, and he was an entrepreneur since the age of 21, and he took over his family business at 25, and it was in need of a turnaround. And so what he did was he just implemented this system and all of these basically old business practices, just simple. There's no silver bullets. It's just business practices that he strung together to create this turnaround in his family business. Ultimately ended up selling the business. And then he went full time just saying, man, I created this system with all of these time tested principles, business principles. I'm just going to go show other businesses how to do that.
Yeah. Well, and I'll preface this. Let's dive a little bit into Traction here, but I'll preface this. And one of you guys already said this. Nothing that we're going to dive deep in here today in Traction is extremely complicated. Most of the things you guys are going to hear is like, yeah, okay, I get it. The power of Traction is the entire system that creates what Bill said, the system of accountability. And it's all about how everything in your practice is run, in your company is run, and everything's filtered through the system. So Zach, I see you got it written down on the board a little bit behind you, but start unpacking just Traction, and we're going to interrupt and just hit on different things, but start unpacking Traction kind of like you would.
For sure. And for our listeners who are just on audio, we do have this up on our YouTube page, which is, Duckett Ladd Dental CPAs and Advisors on YouTube. So if you want to switch over to there or go check out the visuals there, that's definitely available too. So as I mentioned before, one of the main basically objectives of Traction is to get your practice vision, traction, healthy. And we touched on that a little earlier. The second part is getting on a journey to becoming the best organization that you can be. And so that's very intentional. That's an intentional step to take towards getting you to the practice you deserve, and then also getting your practice where you would like it. And so in EOS, there are 6 main components to really any business underlying the foundation of any true business. So what we do is we start with your practice at the center, and then you can see there's 6 spokes or components of the Traction model, and all of those components put together make up the Entrepreneurial Operating System. Basically touches on how Jared said, once you have all 6 in play and you're on the journey to 100% in each category, that's whenever you achieve the true Traction, the system of accountability. And so what we start with is vision. And like I said, vision is basically getting everybody in your practice rowing in the same direction. The worst thing that could happen is if I went around your office and said, hey, what do you think, hey, front office manager, what do you think the vision of this practice is? And then I went to another dentist and said, what do you think the vision is? And if those are colliding, then that spells danger because that means that they're rowing against each other instead of together. And so one of the main ways we do this is we fill out 8 questions. And those 8 questions simplify the strategic planning process for your business. And so we go into establishing a core focus, your core values, a 10-year target, something way out there that we can all get on board with, a marketing strategy, a 3-year plan, a 1-year plan. Then we look at quarterly priorities, which are called rocks, but we'll dive into that deeper when we have a future conversation. And then we look at the issues list, which we'll touch on a little bit here too. So to the degree that you can get all of those 8 questions answered by your leadership team, by the vision, by the holder of the vision of the practice, and then get them followed by everybody and shared by everybody, that's what 100% looks like in the vision component. And that's when you have everybody rowing in the right direction or in the same direction, even though it might not be right at that point, but everybody's rowing in the same direction.
Yeah, so hit on, Zach, real fast. I'm trying to put myself in the listener's ears, if you will, is vision, sometimes vision and mission statement, if you will, kind of get, I wouldn't say confused. I think they're the same thing. So hit on just a little bit. What's the difference between vision, mission statement, and how's that look?
Yeah, so, the way that we talk about that in traction is core focus. And basically, it just kind of removes that confusion. So the core focus is, what are we as a business? What do we stand for? And when you combine those with your core values, you basically remove that confusion of vision, mission, all of those different things. You have your core focus. This is what we stand for as a business. We don't stand for anything else. We 100% stand for this. And then this is what that means and what it looks like through our core values and how we act throughout our organization.
Yeah, that's perfect. No, that's perfect.
So I think what's interesting here, Zach, is that a lot of times people think of vision, they think visionary. I have to be an innovator. I have to, think 15 steps ahead, and really that can be a component of the vision. Certainly different industries need a different level of a visionary leadership, but really a lot of what we're talking about here is probably built into your culture. You just haven't called it out and you haven't named it. Does that seem, do you agree with that? Is that kind of what you tend to see out there?
That's exactly right. And this is that part of, piecing together everything. Whenever you fill out these 8 questions as a leadership team, you put all of those pieces that you were trying to piece together on a 1-page, basically just smaller strategic plan. It's a front and a back page. It's called the Vision Traction Organizer, and it basically helps you achieve 100% in that vision category.
Yeah, and then real fast, we'll let you keep going because there's 6 components here, right? But on the vision, just speaking to dental practices, I don't know how many dental practices we work with that when we come in, bring them on board, and we're talking to them about what they're doing in their business or where they want to go, their answer is, "What do you mean? We're working. We're working." And it's like, I know, but where are you going? What's your vision? Where are you trying to get to? I don't know, Jared. We're working. We're just working. And so really, if you can tell your team members where you're going and cast that vision towards them, it's going to excite them. We'll hit on the people component too, but it's going to excite them. It's going to, show them where you're going as a practice other than just working, because nobody wants to just work, right?
Right. Good point. Good point. So moving on, the second component is the people component. And this is one of the most important pieces, if not the most important piece in this entire system. And so what we talk about here is having the right people in the right seats. And so right people, meaning they share our core values. So each and every one of our team members share and exhibit our core values that we created up at the vision point. So that is necessary to ensure that we have the right people necessary to achieve that vision. The next part is the right seats. And what we talk about here is there's a difference between an organizational chart and an accountability chart. And so most businesses have an organizational chart. And what that is, it's probably a hierarchy that kind of shifts around and can be used to kind of show where people fall in the organization. And that works. But what Traction uses is an accountability chart. And there's a specific way that we go about building out the accountability chart, which we can dive into in a future conversation. But what it basically is it's clear lines of communication, along with defining the exact roles and responsibilities you need to accomplish your vision. You can see that the right people go back to the vision, the right seats go back to the vision. We're building everything around that vision to ensure we have everything necessary to deliver on what we desire to achieve.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. And I think a lot, dental practices again I'm sure, we just went through, not through, right? But the shutdown, if you will, from coronavirus and opening back up. I think a lot of dental practice owners probably realized they maybe had one or two, I'm going to say, wrong people on the bus, right? And so they kind of use that as the resetting point. But a lot of dental practice owners too, maybe once they reopened and got back to operations, they went back to business as usual and didn't look at the accountability chart. And so what they did is just created the same existing seats and didn't really see exactly what seats they needed. So the accountability chart is a extremely powerful tool in any business, and it really transformed ours as well.
Well, there you go. That's the real world example. I mean, Zach was very kind and kind of sidestepped my question about how poor we had implemented it, but basically he burned it to the ground. I mean, to put it bluntly, he looked at what we did and it's garbage, right? And the seats were built out wrong. Some of the people probably weren't quite right. That component right there is worth the price of admission, in my opinion, because people is so hard. Every time we hear our clients we're talking to our clients, most of the problems they have are in some way tied into people. And the ability to create objectivity in that conversation and clear standards as to what this means and what it means to be a team member at Duckett Ladd or XYZ dental practice, that is huge. That completely transformed our business immediately. When we took that on, that made our business a very different place than it was before.
Yeah, no, it's spot on. And you hit the nail on the head there, Bill, with, a lot of times when you're looking at this, and if you start implementing traction, whatever business owner out there, you're going to go through this exercise and it is uncomfortable. But I heard this quote the other day that I'm going to totally botch right now, but it said something to the effect of, your level of success is directly correlated to how many uncomfortable conversations you have. So it is uncomfortable, but the uncomfortable conversations are the ones that make you, a better business. So good stuff.
That's a great point. And so like Bill touched on, the fact that you can be so objective, and traction gives you a process to be objective with the people conversations. We all really don't like the people conversations, but if you can make that uncomfortable people conversation more objective, then that is a win for everybody. And that's what happens whenever you start implementing the people part of this system.
Yeah, perfect, man.
So moving on, the next component is data. And so what that includes is that's a scorecard and measurables. And so what we mean by that is, imagine you're on a desert island and, or maybe it's a vacation island, let's say. And, you got the cabana boy or girl giving you the cocktail in one hand, and you got they hand you another piece of paper in your other hand, and you can only have 5 to 15 numbers on this piece of paper to have a pulse on how your business is doing. Is it operating well? Is it going up and to the right? Is it going bad? Whatever that looks like. And so what we need to do in here for the scorecard is establish those 5 to 15 true key numbers that will give us a pulse on our business, because then it can give us a quick at a glance, okay, we're good to go. And then the next part is the measurables. So having those individual key measurables and having someone own that is another part of the accountability piece. And so having, let's say you had 5 line items. Well, one person in your practice needs to at least own one of those line items. So one person per line, so that they're accountable for driving that number, making sure that it's hitting or meeting or exceeding the goal. And then that way it gives ownership to the people in your practice. If whoever it is, anybody in your practice, if you give them a number and say, hey, we need this to hit this goal, well, that just inspires them to say, oh my goodness, okay, I own this number. I'm going to make sure that we hit this. And so that's one of the key parts to the data. To the degree that you can get 5 to 15 numbers and keep it simplified, and then have someone owning one of those numbers or each of those numbers, that's what 100% looks like in the data category.
Yeah, and it's, you know, I think this component of traction is one of the biggest ones to a degree, because it creates that accountability again. And I know you're going to go over it, but it makes you look at these numbers on that weekly basis. I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but you know, I'm trying to remember in Traction, the book, you know, Gino, and I use this analogy all the time, talks about that plane, right? You know, you get in that airplane and you set your coordinates to go to this destination, and no pilot sets it and just doesn't look at the cockpit and looks at the gauges till they get there. No, they're constantly monitoring that. And, you know, so many business owners, including ourselves, I mean, I'll throw it in there before Traction, you know, we just worked and didn't really monitor things. We know where we're trying to going, but we didn't monitor them as often as we should. And, you know, the results maybe showed, you know, you got to monitor this stuff. And that's the true value of the data component of Traction and what it brings.
Yeah, and I'd say one thing to keep in mind too is some business owners are dialed in and they know exactly what those gauges, those metrics should be. Others aren't. And that's where lean on your accountant, lean on your advisor, you know, try to have them help you understand what's a healthy metric. And they don't all have to be financial. You know, it could be brand reputation. It could be any number of things. But again, the whole point is it's giving you a checkup on your business, and you're looking at it day over day, week over week, month over month. It is always in your face.
Yeah. So what you'll find whenever you have the vision in place, you're starting to look at the people and you're starting to look at the data, what's going to happen is your organization is going to become much more open, honest, and transparent by this point. And so what's going to happen is you're going to start smoking out these issues. And so what Traction does is it gives you a single repository for all of your issues, so that people aren't writing, you know, this issue over here on this notepad, or this issue on this whiteboard, or this issue just telling it to someone else. What it does is it gives you the issues list. And what that is that's a list for your leadership team to dump all of the issues that arise day in and day out. They throw the issues on the issues list. And what we do is we compile those, and then we use the system called IDS to get those, basically set them up, knock them down, and make them go away forever. Because if you, if you're like any typical business, IDS stands for identify, discuss, and solve. And so if you're like any typical business, you're really good at identifying issues, but maybe you're not good at identifying them at the root cause. And so we want to ask why, to truly get to that root cause. And then we want to discuss it. But again, like any typical business, we tend to just stay around discussing. And we go around and around in circles, and we say things more than once, which is actually politicking. And we never really truly get down to the solve piece. And so when you identify it at the root cause, you discuss things, saying things only once, and then you solve it, putting a plan in place directly after you discuss it, saying things only once, put the plan in place, make a to-do out of it, which we'll get into a little bit later. The system just flows, and then you'll find that issue doesn't come up again because you identified it at the root cause, you discussed it, and you put a plan in place to knock it down, make it go away forever.
That's good. And I'm just sitting here thinking, you know, looking at your board behind you, really kind of an example. So I'm thinking of working with a dental practice. It's maybe their vision, you know, maybe a component or a rock, AKA goal, if you will, is to get X number of new patients this quarter. You know, maybe that's their goal. Well, the power of Traction, that's probably going to be a measurable on the data component. That's what you're tracking every week. And as you said, you know, if you get the top half of that in a good spot, it's going to kind of smoke out the issues. Well, if you're looking at the data and every week you're not getting any new patients, or maybe one or two, and not nearly enough to achieve your rock, what does that do? That creates an issue. Goes down, and so then on a weekly deal, you're talking about that issue and discussing, and solving it, so that you can make sure by the end of the quarter you're doing everything you can to achieve that. So just a specific example for dentists, but that's typically what we see.
Well, and that's how you start to see that systematic accountability kick in, right? You know, you have an issue and then you have a rock or a metric or whatever the case may be. You can't hide from that. You know, there is a cadence of meetings, which, you know, we'll certainly get into, but that, you know, forces you to be held accountable to that standard. And that's where this thing comes in. That's where most businesses fail, is that we talk and we say, well, we'll do this and we'll do that and we'll do this and we'll do that. And we never do any of it. Nobody says anything about it. When you commit to it and it's on the IDS and it becomes a to-do or it becomes a rock, then it's going to be tracked and monitored and you're going to be held accountable to that. That's part of that systematic accountability that kicks in. That's huge.
Yeah, that accountability, you know, the ostrich approach, we use that term all the time. A lot of business owners just stick their head in the sand and hope when they come up, it's gone. Traction does not allow you to do that. You might try an ostrich approach for a little bit, but you're going to come up and that scorecard and that data is going to be staring you right in the face. So it doesn't go.
Yeah, no doubt. So the next component is process. So how many of us struggle with process or create these long standard operating procedures that are we try to make those and they end up being 100 pages long. Nobody ever looks at them. Nobody updates them. So in Traction, we basically create these processes. We know that there are a few core components of a business, right? Marketing, we got to get patients in. Operations, we got to deliver the service to the patients. We've got finance, HR, you know, a couple of those things. And so what we do is we take a 20/80 approach to documenting the process. And by 20/80, I mean, what are the 20 steps that make up 80% of the work so that we can have a clean, clear, and concise, basically a manual or a couple page manual for all of our processes in the business. And what this does is it gets us, it gives transparency across the entire practice. And so let's say if you had a marketing process, you've got your sales process, operations process, all of those down the line, and it's in a small bound book. You call it, you know, Your Dental Practice Way, and it kind of creates this franchise model. But what you can do is you can give it to every new hire. They can look through all of the processes and know with great transparency, oh, this is what marketing is. Oh, this is what finance is doing. And so to the degree that we can get those documented in that way and then followed by everybody, that's what 100% looks like in the process component of Traction.
Yeah. And the process is huge. I mean, Michael Gerber, and here we go, talking about different books. Traction takes it all together, but you know, he's big on the process component. And just thinking about this too, this week, having a conversation with a dental practice owner, again, this is data to the process. It's, you know, collections percentage is down. It's not even close to where they need to be. What's the problem? Well, you IDS it over to, there's a kink in the collections process. The collections process is broken, so we got to hone that in a little bit. But having a systematic approach of this is how we do this in the business, and there's no guessing is that's a game changer in any business.
So probably realistically, this is one of the components a lot of people struggle with because it is a lot of work. Dentists tend to be actually better than most other businesses, it seems like. And coming out of COVID, we may have seen people actually really update them. So you may be good here. But Zach, how do they look at the level of detail and how granular you get on those?
Yeah. So kind of like I touched on a little bit. So, I mean, we're talking like imagine a flow chart and you've got individual boxes and you look at your box and it says, you know, we need to do X, Y, Z, you know, A, B, C, D, E, right? So in that box, it's going to allow you to, or it's going to force you to simplify down to one step. What are the major steps? How do we collectively look at how do we put as much in that box as possible, but to still trigger any questions or any thoughts that could come to the mind of someone who hasn't ever looked at it before. So let's say you have, you know, the HR person in your practice and we have a new hire come on. So you have this new hire looks at the HR process and they've got the little boxes and they say, okay, for this specific process, I go here, then I go here. Well, in those boxes, we want to have just enough to say, okay, I kind of get it, but what about this? And so allowing those new team members to ask those questions, to interact with the HR actual specialty or the specialist who can dive deeper into that and give you the rest of the details is so key. And so the goal with this is to keep it as short and simple as possible while maintaining the integrity of the process, so that someone can at least look and say, okay, I get it, but I have a specific question here.
Yeah, and you hear people all the time say, you know, hey, they're talking about hiring somebody, but one of they're apprehensive to hiring somebody because they're like, I don't have time to train them. And this is really where this process, if you will, comes into play. Is, you know, typically when you say I don't have time to train them, kind of to a degree, you're saying I really don't know the processes that they're supposed to be doing. Here you have the process, so the training is cut down dramatically. This is what you do. It doesn't take much time at all.
Yeah, good point. So here's one of the most transformative and most amazing parts of Traction, and this is where we talk through the 90-day world that we create. And so in Traction, we create this 90-day world in a vacuum, right? So we have, we talked about the 10-year target up here in the 8 questions. We talked a little bit about the 3-year picture in the 8 questions. But what we do here is this is where we start bringing the vision down to the ground. And it's no mistake that vision is above traction, because we start bringing the vision down to the ground and executing it in this component. And so this 90-day world that we create is basically what we do is at the beginning of a quarter, you establish your rocks. And so rocks, once again, we're going to simplify down, super simple. We're going to look at the 3 to 5 main priorities that need to happen for the business over the next 90 days. And then we're going to distribute those rocks down to individual people. And these rocks should say, you should be able to read these rocks and say, okay, if this gets done in 90 days, this gets done in 90 days, this gets done in 90 days, will that be a great quarter? And the problem with this, and the problem I've seen with my past clients, is they try to get 5, 10, 15. These are the true priorities that need to happen. Well, we get to the end of that 90-day period, we bring our head up above water, we look back to what happened, and we didn't accomplish any of it. And so, yeah, you can put 10 to 15 on the list, but some powerful things happen whenever you have 3 to 5, and you can accomplish those in the next 90 days. And so that's where the meeting pulse comes in. So Jared kind of talked on this a little bit, but the meeting pulse has multiple components, and it goes from larger to smaller. So in Traction, there's a 2-day annual session that is typically around your start of your fiscal year. And that's where we have a 2-day intensive kind of building out, making sure everything's good for the next year. What does it look like? Is everything still on track? This is where we question everything, nothing's sacred, making sure that everything's ready to go for your next year. Then there's 3 quarterly sessions after that. And so what that allows us to do is that 2-day annual starts the 90-day clock. We go in, we deliver, we achieve on that 90, in that 90 days. Then we meet for a quarterly meeting. We do the same thing, meet for another quarter, and then followed up with another annual. Now within those 90-day periods, you slash those into weekly periods. And so what this is called is it's called the weekly level 10 meeting. And so what that means is we've all been a part of meetings that were just like, well, 1, that could have been an email, or 2, this is dumb, I'm not getting excited for this is a waste of time. And so what Traction does is it boils down everything necessary to have the perfect meeting. And it's very concise, it's very simple, and that's a trend that you'll see across Traction is the simplicity of everything to deliver on. And so what this weekly level 10 meeting allows us to do is hit on our scorecard. It allows us to review our rocks, those 90-day priorities, how are we doing with them? It allows us to talk through customer and employee headlines. So good things, bad things, and it allows us to touch on the to-do list, which was made from the issues solving track last week. And then, but here's the crazy thing, is within all that time, only 20 minutes has passed. So we've already reviewed the scorecard, the rocks, the employee headlines, and our to-do list in 20 minutes. super quick, super fast. The rest of the time is spent solving issues. And so that's the power of the level 10 meeting is, yes, we hit on all of these different things we need to report on, but then we spend a majority of the time solving the issues, setting them up, making them go away, knocking them down, making them go away forever.
So Zach, I'll ask a question here, and I'm going to preface it with a tough question, but it might not be. You probably get this all the time. So if this is the first time I've heard this, you know, traction and the meetings and everything, again, thinking like a dental practice owner, my question is going to be, Zach, I don't have time for all those meetings. How do I do that how do I implement that in my dental practice where I'm struggling even just to find the time to get the work done? How do I add this on top or in between what I'm currently doing?
Yeah, I would say, do you have the time not to? Do you have the, you know, it's just like you said, Jared, you know, you typically run into these dental practice owners that don't truly know where they're going. They're just working. They're just, you know, I have to work. I've got to deliver on my, you know, on these patients. But what I like to encourage is the difference between working in the business and working on the business. And so whether you like it or not, you are a small business owner. And that's probably who we're talking to here. And so what we need to do is we need to be able to structure our business in a way that, yes, we're still within this box, call it working in the business, but structure a way to intentionally pull ourselves out and look at our business as a board of directors. And so whatever that means, and Traction can help with this, because if you have a system, well, then you can just say, okay, this is where we need to budget this in because we already have everything else lined out. This is where the time just opened up. Then that's what you need to do. I mean, you have to figure out and have that mind shift change of working in the business to working on the business.
Just a real world example, Jared, this is probably one of the areas that we got the most pushback from our people. You know, they were used to being in our standard meetings and they really were unproductive and a bad use of their time. And that's on us. And it took a while, but once they understood the level 10 and the voice that they are giving in shaping the direction and the future of the practice, or in our case, the firm, the right team members love that. And they become so engaged. And there's times in some of our level 10s that we don't want to cut off at an hour and a half. And that's one thing about this thing is it's very specific. You know, you start at the same time, you end at the same time, you have the same agenda, and you're wanting to keep going. And that is when you know you kind of have that self-employed mentality of your team members because they're able to make a difference in their work environment. And that is what gets you excited. That's what creates some of those systems that are just going to allow you to start smashing your goals and hold people accountable. That's those level 10s. If you can't carve out the time, then you probably are going to be spinning your wheels a lot. That's just the bottom line. You got to work on that business, just like you said, Zach.
Well, and that weekly meeting is that specific time of the week where you can, I mean, just talking to a dentist the other day, and on their day off, they were getting a text from their hygienist about, hey, what are we going to do about this? I don't want to worry about that right now. So here's a perfect example. Throw it on the IDS. Let's talk about it in a weekly meeting. That's where we will address these topics. So it gives the system, basically, this is when we solve things. This is when we meet every week.
Yeah, there's two parts here. So one, it's called a level 10 business or a level 10 meeting because you rate the meeting at the end. Every single time you rate the meeting. And if it's less than an 8, you put it on the issues list and you say, why did you rate it less than an 8? But if you rate it as an 8, 9, or 10, it's good to go. And so the goal would be to get to where all of your meetings you're excited for, you know you're going to get stuff done, you're going to solve a lot of problems, and it's going to end in a 10 because everybody's pumped. Well, then that's where you get really awesome things happening in your business when people get excited to go to these meetings. And then 2, another main objective of Traction, we kind of touched on a little bit, but it's really taking the time to get away from the urgent and move to the important.
Yeah.
And so if you're running around and you feel like you're just putting out fires and you don't have time for anything, I would highly encourage you to look at this system, because if you switch your mindset and your systems from tackling the urgent to tackling the important, well, that's going to transform you. It's going to transform your life. It's going to transform your business, your team members. It's going to trickle down to everybody. It's going to affect your family. I mean, it's truly a transformative system, not just to your business.
Yeah. What you said there, I mean, again, like the Baptist preacher, if you haven't heard one thing, hear what he just said right there, is once you take, stop worrying about the urgent and worry about the important, that's really what's going to transform your business. That's good stuff, Zach.
So Zach, as we kind of start putting a bow on this, tell us, who should reach out to you or to an integrator or try to understand more in traction? What characteristics are you looking for in a practice owner that says they might be ready and benefit from traction?
Yeah, this is a great question. So the ideal candidates are more afraid of the status quo than they are of change. And so these dental practice owners who are wanting to really take themselves to the next level, really growth oriented. They have way more ambitions to be, to grow farther than where they're at now. That's definitely the ideal. And then, the ideal client for traction is anybody from around 10 employees to 250. And so, you guys are probably going to be on the cusp of that. Some of you guys might have more, some of you might have less, but there's always a way that we can customize the system and dive deeper in to see if it's truly a fit for, your practice now, or if we need to wait a little bit until you get to a specific point. That's kind of the two main pieces is, are you willing to do what it takes to get the practice that you deserve? And if you want to grow, that's perfect. Reach out. And if you have, if you have a team that's even 5, let's still have a conversation and kind of see what traction could look like for you. So,
yeah, real quick too, Zach. So a couple ending questions here. So once you start implementing traction in your business, how long does it take to see the effects of it? I mean, we're in a society of instant gratification, right? So we want it fixed. How long does it take, if you will, to start seeing the effects of it?
That's a great question. So to start implementing traction, there's an initial 60-day ramp-up period. And what happens in those 60 days, we meet 3 times as a leadership team to basically ensure that you have all of the basic systems and foundational tools in place. And so during that 60-day ramp-up period, you're able to, stub your toe, ask questions, get anything down, and make sure it's all perfectly set up as much as you can get it to that point. And then after that 60-day period, well, that's when we go into full execution mode, and it goes into those quarterlies and annuals, and that's when you implement it into your entire practice. And so I have clients that, so one in particular, they've been with me for about a year now, and they're just now starting to crystallize exactly what it means, and they're able to skyrocket. And so that client took a year. I have another client that it took right after that 60-day ramp-up period. They took off. Their team bought in. They all read the books. They all kind of just were clearly rowing in the same direction. And so it really depends on where you're at. We kind of talked through that in an initial 60-day ramp-up period. But some businesses can go 0 to 100 real quick, and then some, it might take a little bit longer. But I'm with you the entire journey, and we kind of roll together.
So you hear operating system, and people may think that sounds really complicated. Like, I don't have time to take on a whole new operating system. I think that's one of the beauty of traction is its simplicity, and it's very what's the word I'm looking for here? Consistent.
Yeah.
It's not something you're going to be constantly changing if it's done well. So speak to that, Zach. How you find people are able to take this, through the 60-day and into the first year and implement it into their practice.
Yeah. So there's definitely a mental commitment from the leadership team that has to happen. for you to completely change what your operating system looks like. If you like this, and if you end up thinking that it's a good fit, there is that mental commitment for about 1 to 2 years to ensure that you are fully implementing it and fully integrating it. And so it is tough. So it's back to that hard conversations piece. Sometimes you have to do tough things to get to where you want to go. But if you have the leadership team set up, whether that be 1 person, 2 people, 3 people, whatever your leadership team looks like, well, as long as you have that united front and you're all trying and working to do it together, plus me as the coach, the facilitator, the teacher alongside you, well, then we run through any roadblocks, and Traction's set up anyway to accomplish that as you go as well. And so even from the first day, you get to see the power of the tools and the different things that you can start implementing right away to kind of get you through to help with that mindset change, to help with that operating system change as well.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And to hit on it too, I mean, business that implements Traction, you might be good in a lot of these components already. So I'm going to say the implementation of that component might be a little quicker, than others. So Zach, let's end on, so the 90-minute meeting. You mentioned that a little bit. Kind of hit on what a 90-minute meeting is and what that looks like.
Yep. So a 90-minute meeting is basically just a conversation between me, myself, and your leadership team, or just you as the main dentist. We kind of dive a little deeper into these six components, but then I also learn a little bit more about you, and we kind of see how we can customize this system to your specific practice. And so coming out of that meeting, we know, is it a good fit or is it not a good fit? And that's basically the start to the implementation phase. So the 90-minute meeting, you can just go to duckettladd.com, hit work together, put in your information, click that you want EOS implementation or that you're interested in EOS implementation, click submit. We will be in touch and we'll set up that 90-minute meeting. And it's basically 90 minutes with me, kind of discussing this whole thing in a little deeper, more context, contextual to your practice.
Yeah, no, that's awesome stuff. And like I said, I can raise my hand and said, hey, we tried to implement it ourselves, and it did not do as well as we probably should have. So once Zach came in here and really got us structured properly and implement Traction 100%, I mean, we're clicking now. We've got the vision. Everybody on our team knows where we're going to go. They all know Traction. So it's been a complete game changer for our firm. That's why we're so passionate about it. That's why Zach's on our team implementing Traction as well, because we believe in how much of an impact. Again, it goes back to what we do as a company, make our clients' lives better. This can make our clients' lives better for sure. So Zach, appreciate you, man. Appreciate you coming on here and kind of diving deep into this. You guys heard, how to reach out to Zach if you need to get in contact with him. Request one of those, free 90-minute meetings, if you will, see if it's a good fit. But I can guarantee you that Traction will drastically change your business. So Bill, any parting comments or words from you before we head out?
I agree with you, Jared. We believe in this. We've seen it firsthand. It's changed our business, and it's really allowed us to grow in a very sustainable, healthy way. Believe in it so much that I believe the next couple of podcasts we're going to do is kind of taking these 6 components and really unpacking them, as we go. We'll talk a little bit about vision, maybe not specifically in the context of Traction and how that works, but more, what it could mean and how other people interpret that and people. So I'm excited, guys. Traction is something that you should look into. It may or may not be the right fit, but for us, it certainly was, and we've worked with a lot of practices that have implemented it well. So take a look at it.
Yeah, that's for sure. So yeah, we'll be next couple podcasts. We're going to dive deep into a lot of the sections, specifically on the dental side. So guys, keep following that. Again, like I always say, if you enjoy the podcast, share it with somebody you know. Leave a review for us as well. But Bill, appreciate you. Zach, appreciate you. And we'll talk to you guys soon. Have a great week.
Yep. See you guys. Thanks.